himself. We also talk about the game within the game. He could just do it better than anyone else that's ever done it. And that's not being biased because he's a Carolina guy. That's just factual. No, not even Kobe Bryant, not LeBron James have the self-motivation that MJ has. And then probably the most, talk about real thing that really got to me outside of the whole image of him in the locker room in 96. The end of episode 7, we questioned after Roy Williams' quote if there was a quote that would top it. Well, then Horace Grant had his comment about the Pistons, and that's still very great. Hearing what MJ had to say in terms of about why he is the way he is in terms of a competitor, and we get choked up seeing guys talk about their love for the game. This wasn't MJ talking about why he loves basketball. This is him talking about why he is the competitor, why he is the pain in the butt that he is, and it made him emotional. He had to go take a break from the interviews. That was something that, like, I was sitting here in my room and I was ready to go run through a brick wall. Now, albeit I didn't, but that's the kind of effect he has because, he just pretty much says, you're the way you are because you've never won anything, and it was just like, man, that's some real talk. That was phenomenal. That's where you're starting to see in between the lines, and we're getting to see all this stuff come to life. Everything we've been told about him. This is why this is so great, because now we're getting to see it. We're getting to hear it from him, from Steve Kerr, from Phil Jackson, from all these different people, and it's just amazing. And it's why. It may have been 20 years late that we got this, but considering where we are in terms of a global pandemic and we don't have sports right now, it's what we're cherishing this even more. But they were phenomenal episodes, and my expectations for the final 2 episodes, whatever they're going to be top. There's no way they will not deliver on the final night of the series.
Oh yeah, no, you're going to get to see. Really the lead up to everything that happens in 1998. And that's pretty much what this has all been leading to. And I think they've done such a great job of picking their moments of when to go back in time to explain certain things. And I'm extremely excited. I think that this is also, setting the standard. I think this is something that we're going to see a lot of going forward with some of the sport, every sport's greatest athlete. We're going to see these in-depth documentary pieces on some of these guys, and it's going to be awesome because this is what we're going to want to see. So, we're going to see stuff on Kobe, and I think we're all going to be locked in for that. And this is the first time that I can remember where a documentary series like this has been must-watch TV. And like you said, maybe some of it is because of the global pandemic. I don't think that's all it is, though. I still feel like if this was going on during this time of the year, unless you're a huge baseball fan, that might be the only ones that wouldn't be tuning into it live. And even still, most of those people would probably be recording it. This is just a new level of documentary, and it's really delivered. And I'm going to be intrigued to see where they're going to go from here. Who's next? And it's going to be tough to top this one, though. I'm going to tell you that much because this has been a great look at Michael, and we were all excited, of course, to see him, as Carolina fans and hear about his Carolina career. But even since then, it's just been amazing to watch everything about him. And, that really takes something for us to say, considering we're Knicks fans and he kicked our ass all the time. So.
Yeah, it was cool getting to see him, torture the Hornets after B.J. Armstrong kind of jaws at him after he hit a shot to steal Game 2 in the 98 second-round playoff series. But as you mentioned, it has gotten old. Seeing him, he dropped 55 in his 5th game back when he returned, and of course everything he did in his career against the Knicks. Luckily, we're going to get to see him take out Reggie Miller, who also has a special place in Nick fan hearts because he ripped our heart out many a time too with the Indiana Pacers. So, anything else? Last chance before we get on to the final topic.
No, did you laugh? I just have the question. Did you laugh at the end when Reggie Miller said that he, to this day, still thinks that they were the better team and he thought going in that they were unquestionably going to win that series.
Look.
But I did. I lost it. I was like, they should show that clip to Michael and watch Michael laugh at him. Because, Reggie Miller was one of the top villains in basketball. I still, to this day, do not like Reggie Miller at all. Don't care if he's a good analyst or whatever. I think he's a piece of crap. I hate everything about him. Whereas, like Michael, I have respect for him. There's nothing to respect about Reggie Miller. He wasn't that great of a player. He's extremely overrated, and I just thought it was hilarious when he basically said that we had the better team, and I was going to find a way to take out Michael Jordan. I was like, yeah, you? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it definitely was something to sit there and kind of laugh at because, before he made the comment, I always thought Reggie Miller was an idiot. I don't think he's a great analyst on TNT's coverage of the NBA. What he said just really confirmed him that he's a moron. And we're going to get a quote from Michael in the episodes about that Game 7, about the potential of them losing, where he's going to tell Phil, F that, we're not going to lose, and that's going to be great because I hate Reggie Miller because everything he's done to the Knicks and because he's not a good analyst. So that was a very good moment, and hopefully they show him saying that on iPad, because MJ's reaction on watching them on the iPads is phenomenal because he just straight clowns these people, and it's brutally hilarious. So we'll move on to the final topic. We've been going through season reviews for Carolina basketball players. We're down to find the final two as we're in the freshman class. We're going to go to Cole Anthony first because, well, as you all know, he has already declared to go to the NBA, so there's not a whole lot of talk about him in terms of coming back for a sophomore year. But this could still be, I'm not going to say controversial, a lot to talk about when it comes to Cole Anthony's one season in Chapel Hill. He came in with more expectations than any player in the last decade or so. Number 2 overall recruit coming out of high school, number 1 point guard. By the summer, Roy Williams has said he's the best talent he's ever coached. Phil Ford, after seeing him, said that he may be the best point guard ever don, the Carolina basketball jersey. He goes out in Game 1 against Notre Dame, drops 34, and we think, man, this might be a guy that can literally will us to an ACC title and possibly even a national championship. Before the injury that forced him to miss 11 games and effectively doomed our season, you could tell that he was a great talent, but he wasn't quite yet to that level. And then, of course, when he came back from the injury, he was having to readjust to playing alongside Garrison Brooks, as Garrison Brooks had kind of become the alpha dog. He still wasn't the kind of guy we were told we were going to get. Had a great stretch at the end of February, early March, where he played really, really great for 3 games. Goes to Cameron Indoor Stadium, gets showed up again by Trey Jones in a season-ending loss to Duke. And then, of course, in the ACC tournament, didn't have a great showing in the loss to Syracuse. So, with all that said, you look at his numbers, if he would have played a full ACC schedule, would have led the conference in scoring, would have probably been a first-team All-ACC, would probably think Carolina is at least a tournament team at the absolute worst. All that didn't happen, but this was a guy that before the injury and during the injury got as much criticism as a player as we've seen in our Tar Heel fandom lifetime.
Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster going from that first game where pretty much everybody was wanting to put this guy into the College Basketball Hall of Fame, hand him the Player of the Year trophy, season's over, this team's winning the national championship, we got to a point where, as you mentioned, during the injury, guys were like, this dude's going to be a quitter, he's not going to come back, he's going to leave this team, in the dust and just say, forget it. And then when he ends up coming back, there were people that were like, well, we've gotten in a rhythm. Maybe he should have just not come back, should have just stayed on the bench and hung out. It was just, there were so many different opinions of Cole throughout the season that it was just shocking to try. At how many times people could change their minds. But I feel like we kind of were all over the place with him. I think that during the season, it was hard to really look and say that, man, this guy is doing what we thought he would do, that this guy is helping lead this team to wins because, the shooting percentage wasn't great. It looked like there were times where he was just being a little too selfish with the basketball. But in the end, I mean, you go and step back and look at his numbers at the end of the season, and it was really pretty good. Actually, probably one of the best freshman seasons that we've seen from a point guard, considering some of the guys that we've had roll through campus. I mean, it was probably better on paper, and if you were to go back and watch each season and compare game by game, then guys like Ty Lawson, I don't know, Lawson might be a little bit different, but definitely guys like Marcus Page and Joel Berry, who really just weren't big contributors their freshman year, and for good reason. They really weren't anywhere near the players that they were at the end of their career. So I think that's kind of how people have to look at it. Again, as you mentioned, and we talked about it a ton when talking about Cole, the expectations for him were as big as any expectations that we've seen in modern Carolina history. He was expected to come in and be the savior of this team. He was expected to come in, take over where Kobe White left off, and potentially even improve on that. That didn't happen because those goals were set maybe just a little bit too high. Injuries definitely derailed him, and again, this started earlier than we were probably led on to. He was battling through an injury probably, they guess, since before they may have even went out to play in the Battle for Atlantis. So it's hard to really sort of put his season into perspective and say he's a complete failure or he's actually a success, because I think that we kind of got carried away ourselves with the expectations. The injuries played a huge factor into it, not only his injury, but the fact that he didn't have a lot of help around him. But ultimately, I think he's going to be one of those guys that when you go back and you want to talk about him as a player, there are going to be vastly different opinions. You're going to have people that really either thought that everything just went wrong while he was on campus, and that if he had, stayed another year, or if the injury issues hadn't piled up, he would have been a great player. Or there's people that think that he probably never should have even been considered by Roy Williams to be on that Carolina basketball team. They should have looked somewhere else for a point guard, or just tried to bite the bullet, kept Seventh Woods there, and just fought through, what would have been some struggles there. He's one of the guys that's going to be a very controversial player when we're talking about him a few years down the line, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that went into why he didn't have the kind of year he was supposed to have. It started with the expectation being through the roof, but that comes with you have a high school mixtape like he had, and then you're going to play for Roy Williams in Carolina, and you just produced Kobe White, who no one thought after 1 year would be the number 7 pick in the NBA draft, and appeared to be well on his way to being a future star in the NBA. But he didn't have Seventh Woods, and I think if you have that veteran point guard on the roster that can kind of help just guide you through the offense and learning how to play for Roy Williams, maybe it's a different situation. Maybe if Carolina just wasn't beat to hell from day one, and everyone had a role and they knew what their job was to do, and he could just be the guy that dished the ball and made shots when he had to. Maybe he's a more efficient player. Carolina wins more games. I know we had an argument after the Florida State game about what should we do, was Carolina better with or without him? Because at the time, I was convinced Carolina was better off without him because he was playing selfish ball. But you also had to look on the microscope that for the first 11 games of the year, our best offense was him shooting the ball. And it was hard for him to adjust coming back and being understanding to give the ball to Garrison Brooks and at times Armando Bacot, because they can get you buckets inside. And then you had the stretch where he was so good against, Syracuse and Notre Dame, or not Notre Dame, NC State and Wake Forest. But then he had the Duke games where Trey Jones just outplayed him. Now, a lot of this because Trey Jones went back to Duke to really shine in the Carolina games. Whether he'll admit that or not, we'll never know. But after getting shown up by Kobe White twice, that was a big part of his motivation to return to Duke. That was also leaving us kind of head scratched. And so, look, I think in an ideal situation, if Carolina at least makes the tournament, then we have a different opinion about Cole Anthony as a player. The person, he's a great person. We've seen that. during the injury. He was a great teammate. We've seen him be active, helping out with people in New York with the coronavirus. So we don't have a problem with the guy he is off the court. I think it was the stuff on the court, the constant arguing with the refs, the inability or the unwillingness to trust